My friends, today we're going to talk about something everyone experiences, but most people never fully understand. Have you looked at your grocery receipts lately? Did filling up your car cost $100 last year, but $130 now? Is your rent going up every year while your salary stays exactly where it was? That's inflation. And after watching this video, you won't just understand it, you'll learn how to protect yourself from it and even how to use it to your advantage. Ready? Let's go. 1. What is inflation? What does it actually mean? Friends, let me explain inflation in one sentence. It's the decrease in your money's purchasing power over time. In other words, you have the same amount of money, but you can buy less and less with it. It's like your wallet has an invisible hole that slowly leaks. The money doesn't physically disappear, but its value does. Let's make this concrete. Say, 10 years ago, you did a grocery run for $100 and your cart was full. If you went to the same store today with that same $100, half your cart would be empty. That difference is inflation. So how is inflation measured? Economists use something called the Consumer Price Index. This index tracks the prices of products and services that an average household regularly buys: food, rent, transportation, healthcare, entertainment. How much have these prices risen on average? That rate of increase is your inflation rate. Now, let me throw in a small joke. Economists define inflation as rising prices. I define it as your money quietly shrinking. Isn't the second one more honest? 2. Why does inflation happen? Demand pull, inflation. Very simple. When demand for a product or service outpaces supply, prices rise. When everyone wants the same thing, sellers can charge more. Remember what happened to graphics card prices during the pandemic? That's demand pull inflation. Cost push inflation. When production costs rise, raw materials, energy, labor producers are forced to pass those costs onto the price of the product. When oil prices rise, shipping gets more expensive. When shipping gets more expensive, everything in the grocery store gets more expensive. That's the chain reaction. Money supply expansion. When central banks pump money into the economy to stimulate it, more money chases the same amount of goods. This drives prices up. Simple supply and demand logic, but this time applied to money itself. Expectation, inflation. This is an interesting mechanism. When people expect prices to rise, they immediately demand higher wages. Higher wages increase production costs. Rising costs get passed on to prices, and the cycle feeds itself. Psychology directly affects the economy here. 3. Who are the losers of inflation? Friends, now it's time for an honest conversation. Inflation doesn't affect everyone equally. Some people pay a much heavier price. Cash savers. Those who keep money in savings accounts, under the mattress, or in interest accounts are inflation's biggest victims. If your money is earning 0.5% interest while inflation is running at 5%, you're losing 4.5% in purchasing power every year. The math is very simple and very painful. Those living on fixed incomes, people whose salary increases lag behind inflation, are genuinely getting poorer in real terms. The amount of money stays the same, but what they can buy with it keeps shrinking. Long-term fixed-rate lenders, meaning people who lend money to others at a fixed rate. When inflation rises, the real value of the money they get back falls. It was very valuable when they lent it, less valuable when they got it back. 4. Who are the winners of inflation? This is where things get interesting, my friends. Because like every crisis, inflation produces winners alongside losers. And I want to position you on that side. Borrowers, especially fixed-rate borrowers. This sounds strange, but think about it. Say you bought a house for $300,000 today and took out a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. As inflation rises, the real value of that $300,000 debt decreases. Inflation is essentially eroding your debt. On top of that, the value of the house generally rises with inflation. Double win. Asset owners, those who own real assets like real estate, stocks, and commodities, are generally protected from inflation because the value of these assets tends to rise alongside it. Business owners in the right sectors, businesses that can adjust their prices in line with inflation, can come out ahead, especially if their expenses rise more slowly than their revenue. Businesses with pricing power have an advantage during inflationary periods. 5. What should we do to protect ourselves from inflation? My friends, now we've reached the practical part. Take notes on this section because it will directly impact your life. Don't let cash sit idle, but don't take stupid risks. During inflationary periods, holding cash is like slowly burning money. But this doesn't mean throw everything into risk. Your emergency fund should stay liquid and accessible, but every dollar beyond that should be working in a vehicle that beats inflation. Move toward assets that protect against inflation. Historically, the most effective tools for protecting against inflation are real estate. Both rental income and value appreciation tend to move in line with inflation. Stocks, especially companies with pricing power that own real assets. Commodities, gold, silver, and other raw materials generally gain value during inflationary periods. Treasury, inflation-protected securities, government bonds, whose value adjusts based on inflation. This is not investment advice. This is historical observation. Always do your own research. Invest in your skills. This is relevant in every period, but especially critical during inflation. Higher earning capacity is one of the strongest defenses against inflation. Skills that allow you to command higher wages help you stay ahead of it. Manage your debt wisely. High-interest consumer debt is dangerous during inflationary periods, especially variable rate debt. Low-interest fixed debt, on the other hand, can actually work in your favor. Know which category each of your debts falls into. Diversify your income sources. Dependence on a single income is risky in any period, but far more dangerous during inflation. If your salary increases are lagging behind inflation, additional income sources can close that gap. Review your spending. Budget tracking becomes even more critical during inflationary periods. Which expenses are genuinely adding value and which are just habit? Asking this question regularly is the easiest way to protect your purchasing power. 6. How can we use inflation to our advantage? Friends, now it's time to shift a mindset. Inflation is not an enemy. For those who understand it, it's a tool. Acquiring assets with fixed-rate mortgages, buying real estate with a low fixed-rate loan during an inflationary period gradually reduces the real burden of that debt over time. While the rent your tenant pays rises with inflation, your mortgage payment stays fixed. The gap keeps growing in your favor. Accumulating real assets. Instead of saving cash, accumulating real assets turns inflation's natural effect to your advantage. Assets that tend to rise in value with inflation protect and grow your purchasing power over time. Building or investing in businesses with pricing power. Businesses that can comfortably raise their prices are the most resilient structures during inflationary periods. Building these kinds of businesses or becoming a partner in them puts inflation to work for you. Locking in fixed-rate debt when inflation expectations are high. When inflation rises, interest rates generally rise with it. Being able to lock in fixed-rate debt when inflation expectations are high, but rates haven't yet peaked, can provide a significant advantage going forward. Commodities and inflation-linked assets, including assets that tend to gain value during inflationary periods in your portfolio, helps protect your money's purchasing power. 7. Gold and inflation. Myth or reality? My friends, I absolutely have to address this question because I hear it constantly. Gold is the best protection against inflation. The truth is that this is correct, but it's nuanced. When you look at long-term data, you can see that gold preserves purchasing power. Meaning, what you could buy with an ounce of gold 50 years ago, you can still buy today. But in the short term, gold can behave extremely erratically. Sometimes gold falls unexpectedly, even while inflation is rising. That's why thinking of gold not as a standalone solution, but as part of portfolio diversification is a healthier approach. Conclusion: inflation is unavoidable, but IT's not unbeatable. Friends, let me be very clear about this. Inflation is an unavoidable part of modern economies. Most central banks target around 2% annual inflation as healthy. So a certain amount of inflation is built into the design of the system. This shouldn't paralyze you. On the contrary, it should move you to action. You understand inflation. That's step 1. You know the steps that protect against inflation? That's step 2. And you can see how to use inflation to your advantage. That's step 3. The only thing left, take action. Look at your bank account today. Is your money beating inflation, or is inflation beating your money? The answer to that question changes everything. Knowledge is power, but knowledge put into action is wealth. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next video, my friends.